Welcome back to another episode of the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. I'm your host, Tara Renze. It is a solo episode today, one that I'm actually really excited about, a lesson that I learned the hard way. And it's actually a chapter in my book, which, by the way, my new book is out. It's on pre-sale. So you can pick it up on my website. Just go to tararenze.com/books. And guess what else? If you live in Kansas City, we're actually having a big book party on July 24th that you are invited to come to. You can find out more information about that on my website as well, or just drop me an email, tara@tararenze.com, and I'll get you all the information. It's going to be an awesome afternoon happy hour of book launch and fun. And inside the book is what we're going to be talking about today. I am not actually sure because I don't have the new book with me. I'm looking at my the OG book right now. But there's a chapter called Do Not Make Decisions Based on Nostalgia. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. This is such an important lesson to learn. And I think, we all had times in our lives where we get overly nostalgic about something and we're trying to recreate the past, or we're chasing a feeling that we've had. So we're like, I'm just going to go back to that and keep doing that. But the problem is it's not the reality anymore. The message is be who you came to be, not recreate nostalgic moments of your life and try to be something that you're not. So we're going to be talking all about nostalgia on the podcast today. And, I think that the problem with nostalgia is it really holds us back from growth. It holds us back from possibility and the life that we're meant to live. Now, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't just get really warm and fuzzy about nostalgia and honoring those moments and remembering. But when remembering turns into trying to recreate is where it can cause big problems for you in your life, because we can't recreate the past. We can honor it and we can celebrate it, but who we are today is not who we came to be, and it certainly isn't who we used to be. So let's dig in a little bit and talk first off about what is nostalgia and why do we love it. So they call nostalgia a psychological phenomenon, and it's more than just a wistful feeling. It's this psychological phenomenon, and I love this. Dr. Clay Rutledge, a psychologist, said that nostalgia is a resource that helps people maintain continuity in their identity, increases the meaning of life, and strengthens social connectedness, which you can get all of that, right? When we think about being nostalgic about something, it does. It's that continuity of our identity, the meaning of our life, like those really great times, because let's face it, we're nostalgic about really good things. We don't get overly nostalgic about like stuff in our life that wasn't great. We try to exit those moments out and forget about them. So it tells us like that we've lived a good story and that we've had a good life and things are good and that we're okay and that we're safe. And we should honor that. But as George Ball says, nostalgia is a seductive liar. And isn't that the truth? Nostalgia is a seductive liar. And why? Because it doesn't always tell the whole story. We leave out the bad parts. We, shine light on the golden parts and hide the hard ones. And when we allow nostalgia to be part of our decision-making process, we're letting our past comfort determine our future course. And that's not always the good thing. There's a great saying, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And nostalgia will always halt you from doing that, because there was a time where it was good, where everything was great, and that feels so good. And sometimes we're just constantly trying to recreate that. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story about how I learned this lesson. Actually, it was a really, really great lesson for me to learn. And for me, it was when I was transitioning from career badass to mom and career badass. See, you can be both. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, just so my listeners know. Like, you can kick ass at your job and be a great mom. They're not in competition, okay? But I in my 20s, I worked in the corporate world. I absolutely loved my job. I worked for careerbuilder.com. That is always has and forever has been hard to say, careerbuilder.com. And I actually started in sales, just like a, entry-level sales rep, worked my way up to sales manager, ended up running a couple sales offices, got nominated to be on a bunch of leadership boards. My sales team was one of the, number one sales teams in the country year over year. won awards, got all the highlights. I ended up being asked to run their sales training program out of Atlanta. It was just an amazing organization with so many amazing people. We worked our butts off, but we had so much fun. It was just absolutely amazing. If you're listening and don't know what Career Builder did or does, they were the original job board. So before that, you would really have to go to a newspaper or a headhunter to find jobs. And when the internet was, really peaking in the early 2000s, they were there with online job postings. So myself and my reps, we'd go sell to Fortune 500 companies and help them with their human capital strategies and recruiting top talent. And it was absolutely amazing. I loved it. In fact, my aspirations was that I was going to go all the way, like C-level executive. I wanted it all. I absolutely loved it. And I never felt like I was working a day. Like, I absolutely loved it. And then I got pregnant. And then I had one kid, and I immediately started making shifts. I was like, ooh, I don't think I want to run sales offices anymore. It's too much responsibility. I felt like, how can I be a great parent to this kid? And then I had all this responsibility at work. So I actually went back into sales. And then I was like, oh, wait, here I was, like, overly nostalgic. Like, I loved sales. I remember telling myself, like, I love sales. I was great at it. It was so much fun. I go back in sales, kicked ass, but it just wasn't me anymore. And so then the company gave me the opportunity to do some consulting work with them, which was also really, really great. So I went in like a consulting role, but then I had another kid, and that was hard to balance, and I was traveling, and I realized at that point in time, like, hey, I had changed. This career that I absolutely loved, I was no longer a fit for it anymore, for where I was at in my life and what I wanted in my life. And I think that this is something I've really had to put into perspective, especially when I had my young kids at home and I was home with them, was like, hey, I wanted to do this. I get to do this. And I'm glad that I have this opportunity to do this. So I completely quit my corporate job. And I actually started a direct selling business with Stella and Dot, where we sold jewelry. And I ended up building a multi-million-dollar team with that. And it was amazing. And, I got to work from home, and I got to flex my sales and leadership muscles and build a team and, make a viable income and have a great time with these women from all over the country, ended up being all over the world. And it was absolutely amazing. But there was something that I always did that robbed me from truly being present in the moment, and that was nostalgia. And when I was really working on this podcast, I was thinking, like, why do we make decisions based on nostalgia? And one, you're clinging to a job not because it fulfills you, but it reminds you when you felt important. And I think this was where I was at with my corporate job. Was I was like, okay, well, I had this job that was so important, and I had the salary and the expense account and the cars and the all the things, all the bells and whistles and all the people and all that, and now I was working at home. And I remember one time talking with my husband, and like, gosh, I just felt like I was like, kind of a big deal. Now I don't feel like a big deal. And, this isn't even about ego, really. It's just about feeling different and changing. And I think for me, really just navigating motherhood and career and trying to figure out, like, how I could do both. And I remember one time Scott told me, he said, here's the thing. He's like, I guarantee you that you have touched more people and changed more lives selling jewelry than you did working in the corporate world. And you know what? He was totally right, because I got to go connect with women on a weekly basis, whether it was at a trunk show or an opportunity event, find out about them, give them the confidence to do something great in their life. By the way, if you don't like direct sales, you should not listen to my podcast. I think there is so much misconception about this business. And you know what? There are some, rotten eggs, bad tomatoes, like crappy companies. But most of these companies are built around great products with an opportunity that gives someone the ability to be who they came to be. People are looking for flexible income. They're looking for an opportunity to provide for their family where they don't have to go work an hourly job, or maybe they need to work a side job. There were women in my organization that were like, hey, if I could earn an extra $500 a month, I could go to the grocery store and get food for my kids and not have to check the price on every single thing. And that was huge impact, So if you're a naysayer on direct sales, I challenge you to rethink it And here's the thing, find that person who's doing it and support them. You don't have to join their team. You can still support them. And if nothing else, don't talk negative about them. Like, why would you talk negative about them? They're really making a decision that they are trying to do something great for their family and for themselves, because they're probably struggling with something in their life and they're looking for something extra, whether it's professional development, whether it's community, whether it's money, whatever it is. Anyway, the rabbit hole. I'm out of it. I'm back. Okay. I'm back. So I was running my direct sales business, always overly nostalgic about how amazing my corporate career was. And enough to where I was like, well, I probably will go back to it. Once the kids get to be a certain age, I'll be able to go back. I think we have this misconception as moms, once they get to be this age, then it'll get easier. Just so you know, it doesn't. It never gets quote unquote easier. It gets different. It just changes. And anyway, I got a call from a couple people that I worked with at Career Builder who had now moved on to another organization. And they were like, Renze, this is it. We're so excited. This company's awesome. We want you to come work for us. You would be so kick-ass. Great, package and money, car, all the stuff, all the great sales job stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. And I took the job, and you guys, this is so embarrassing. I can't even believe I'm admitting this on the podcast, but if you know me, you know the story. I actually resigned 3 months later, which was literally one of the most shameful things that I've ever had to do in my life, was to resign from this job and let down these people that I loved so much, that I loved these people so much. And they took a risk on me and they hired me because they wanted me to come back, and they knew that I was longing for something. And, I had to go back to them and be like, this isn't who I am anymore. This isn't who I am anymore. And I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was sad. And I have to tell you, Bruce Skull and Beth Prunier, if you listen to my podcast, thank you for your grace and love and friendship and helping me navigate that, because I'll never forget how good you were to me when I made this decision that, compromised you as a sales leader. And I know that look, we all make bad hires, and I'm going to be the first one to say that at the time, that was a bad hire. I should have never been hired for that job. Hey, it's Tara here, and I am so excited to let you know that the second edition of my book, Be Who You Came to Be, is officially on pre-sale. I originally self-published the book, and now a publishing house has picked up the book, and I'm so excited and so honored that this book will be available in bookstores across the country. However, you don't have to wait till it gets into the bookstore to get your copy. You can go to my website and sign up for your very own pre-sale book, which includes new secrets, new emotional intelligence takeaways to help you step into your authenticity and be exactly who it is that you came to be. Look, you don't need a self-help book to help you fix what's broken. You're not broken. You just need to become more of who you already are. It's why I poured my heart into this book, and I am so excited that a copy is waiting for you. Head over to my website now and get your copy. What happened? I made the decision based on nostalgia. I was so nostalgic about who I used to be and feeling small at the time because of these stories that I told myself, when what I should have been saying the whole time was, yeah, that job was so great, but that's not who I am anymore. I want to be home with my kids. I love the opportunity to be here. And instead, what I did is I romanticized all the great parts, and I forgot about how miserable I was when I was in that hotel room by myself, wondering if my baby was sleeping through the night. I was miserable when I couldn't be at the daycare center at 10 a.m. for something because I had to be on a sales call. I was miserable when I had to send my kid with a sniffle because I had to fly out of town or whatever it was. I mean, there were all the things. But in my rose-colored glasses of nostalgia, I forgot to tell myself that and said I was just trying to recreate this ultra glamorous, high-powered sales life that I had. And that's when I learned the lesson: don't ever make decisions based on nostalgia, because who you were is not who you are today, and is certainly not who you came to be. I think that people stay in relationships, they have routines or roles because they used to be right, not because they still are. I mean, how many times Have people gone back together and gotten back together with someone that they know they should not be with in a relationship, where that relationship no longer serves them? It's not who they used to be. And together, they didn't grow together, they grew apart. But man, when it was good, it was good. Like, this is what like every country song is written about, you know, like when it was good, it was great. And how can we create that? In business, we might say stuff like, we've always done it this way. This is how we've always done it. It worked before. It's always worked. And we just keep trying to recreate it versus reinvent and innovate towards a new, better for us. And I even think about, you know, my relationship with my husband. You know, it's not what it used to be. Obviously, before we had kids, before we got into all of life, before our kids got older, before we started working at home, before we had houses and bills and all that, like everything constantly changes. And you have to continue to grow, change, and evolve in your roles, in your relationships, in your career, and what you're doing and how you're showing up. So here's the emotional intelligence breakdown for nostalgia, and really how to make sure that you are celebrating it, the warm and fuzzies, and giving a nod to the badass, amazing person that you used to be, but not trying to recreate it. So first off, we got to really elevate the self-awareness. This is going to help you notice when you are operating from emotion over logic. Emotion over logic, self-awareness, really thinking about how do you feel, having those internal conversations with yourself, getting out a notepad, writing down the pros and cons, all of that will help you elevate your self-awareness to help you figure out how it is that you're really feeling versus letting nostalgia be that seductive liar. Reality testing, reality testing, it's one of my favorite things because reality testing is seeing things for how they actually are, not the story that you've decided to make up. And we all love to write a story that is absolutely not true. And instead of really honoring the actual facts, we start to write our own fiction. So the more that you can elevate your reality testing, understanding what's real and what's not, knowing that you're not your thoughts, they are just data for you, and honoring who it is that you actually are at this stage in your life. And then your impulse control, okay? Look, I am an impulsive person. This is something I've always had to work on myself. But instead of defaulting to what's familiar, because that's what we do impulsively, is to really pause, reflect, and to decide intentionally, like what you're up to and what's the best decision for you to make. So nostalgia isn't the enemy. Emotional unawareness is the enemy. In emotional intelligence terms, nostalgia is just the data point. It shows you what mattered to you, but it shouldn't help you. It shouldn't dictate what's going to come next. Again, you didn't come to be who you were. You didn't come to be who you were 10 years ago. You didn't come to be even who you are now. You're going to continue to grow and change and evolve because you are becoming. This is really the be who you came to be message at its core. And again, it's not about erasing the past. It's just not letting it dictate and define your next move. And, the most powerful people, the most successful people I've worked with in boardrooms, at the ballparks, in break rooms, whatever it might be, they aren't the ones that are clinging to the past. They're the ones that are innovating and shining light on what could be. What could be their next move? What is going to be next? Like, how do we make it better? Not how do we continue to recreate it? I mean, look no further than the Stanley Cup, the Stanley mug, not the Stanley Cup, the soccer, the Stanley mug, right? This used to be our grandfather's green tin can that he would take I remember my grandfather took it to the oil fields with his hot soup or coffee in it. Might have had a hot toddy in it, I don't know. Anyway, that's what it was. And it was amazing, right? I mean, every working blue-collar guy had a Stanley. And if Stanley would have stayed stuck in nostalgia about how amazing that was versus continue to evolve and innovate, they wouldn't have been selling Stanley mugs to every influencer out there. I mean, I have Be Who You Came to Be personally branded Stanley mugs because they continue to evolve and they've built the future of their brand and organization versus being in nostalgia of what it used to be. Okay, so a couple things before we wrap this episode up. Practice that reality testing. What is true right now? Strip the emotion out and really focus on the facts. I love to think about nostalgia with a little bit of self-regard, right? Like how much you've grown, who you were, and celebrating that. But maybe that even that version that was bigger than life and amazing isn't who you are now, because you're a bigger version of yourself now. So that self-regard of like celebrating that amazing moment and what it was, and then using that as your fuel to create something new. So it's, shifting your thoughts from saying, I miss how it used to be, to saying, I'm going to create something even better. Like, it's uncomfortable right now because I'm growing, I'm changing and evolving, but I'm going to create something even better, to where eventually there's going to be a time in my life where I'm nostalgic about what's happening right now. And then I love this idea of creating a new anchor. So what's a tradition, a goal, or a moment that you can build on now that reflects on who you are today? We don't live in reruns, like, unless it's Friends. And then I do live in reruns, and I can't get enough Friends. That show has aged so well. Sorry about the rabbit hole here, but I freaking love it. But imagine if you really got into a show and they were like, we're just going to keep rerunning. Eventually you just be like, okay, I've seen this episode 25 times. Like, I want something new. So does your soul. So does your life. Like, you are not a rerun. You get to reinvent and run your life in a forward trajectory every day, creating something new and exciting, just as it is when you're so excited that new episode is coming out. Look, here's the deal. You are always going to have nostalgia in your life. If you've lived a good life, you're always going to have nostalgia. And even if you've lived a hard life, there's going to be times where you look back and you just think about the past and you celebrate it. And I do want you to honor it. I want you to think about it. But here's what you need to ask yourself is, does this still serve the person that I am now? Who I am today, who I am becoming, who I came to be? Or am I just afraid to outgrow what used to fit, what was easy, what was comfortable, who I was, because it felt safe and warm and fuzzy? And nostalgia is sweet, but guess what? Who you came to be, your future, it's even sweeter. So you deserve that life. You deserve the life that continues to grow and change and evolve, so that you can create new moments of nostalgia and amazing points where you can look back and reflect and be like, oh my God, that was so amazing, but look how far we've come. Look, if today's episode resonated with you, maybe you have a friend who's been stuck trying to make a decision on their life, where they were, where they're going, share the episode with them. Maybe they will remember that nostalgia can be amazing, but it is a seductive liar. And most of all, we should never make decisions based on nostalgia. I'm your host, Tara Renze. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. Keep shining, live unapologetically authentic in the present, look to the future, and be who you came to be.